Hey, Nikhil, what are you up to there? We've got a session to get going here.
I'm trying to find an orange square and a red square, but I can't seem to find any. It's a mess.
Well, that looks like a pain. Let me give you an easier way to do that here, Nikhil.
What? That is so much better. A red square and an orange square. Thank you, Matt.
Well, there you go.
So we have five shelves with color-organized blocks, and within each shelf, you have different shapes. Thank you, that's genius, Matt.
So much easier.
If only there was a way to do the same thing with logs. Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, I've got some good news for you. We're going to find out about it later in the session today.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Let me put this away. All right, welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nikhil Kapoor, and with me I have...
Hey, I'm Matt Tishner.
We are product managers with Amazon CloudWatch, and today we will walk you through some of the new launches we announced yesterday within CloudWatch. First, we'll go through some of the common challenges we hear from customers related to log analysis and how machine learning and the capabilities we have announced yesterday will help you overcome those. We'll also show you some of those capabilities in action via a demo. Next, we'll walk through some of the challenges, common challenges again, we hear around management of logs at scale. When you're dealing with a large volume of logs, how can you manage them effectively, both from a cost standpoint as well as efficiency standpoint? And that's where we'll bring in our new log class, infrequent access, and how it can help you build a better observability workflows. With that, let's start with a quick hand raise. How many folks here are familiar with CloudWatch or have used it in the recent past? Oh, wow, awesome. This makes my job a lot easier. Just in case, a quick refresher for anybody who may not be familiar. Amazon CloudWatch is an AWS native observability service within Amazon and AWS, which offers you a whole suite of capabilities, both from foundational capabilities like logs, metrics, trace, ingestion, and management, all the way up the stack to digital experience and real user monitoring using Service Lens, synthetics, real user monitoring, and Internet Monitor. And we are constantly expanding on these pseudo capabilities to make your lives easier so you can do more innovating and less operating. With that, let me bring on Matt Tichnor back again to fulfill the promise he just gave me of showing me a better way to find those Legos.
All right, thanks, Nikhil. All right, so now we're going to jump into how we're going to, these new features we've just released this week with CloudWatch, use machine learning to hopefully make the process of logs analysis much quicker and easier. So let's start by reviewing a couple of the most common challenges we hear about with regards to log analysis from our customers. First of all, and I'm sure many folks here in the audience will empathize with this one, but for many of our customers, there's simply too much log data. Everyone's applications keep growing and growing. The diversity of log data keeps growing more diverse and more complex with different compute frameworks, et cetera. And many times when our customers need to go into their logs to deep dive and try and find that needle in a haystack, there's simply so much log data available, it can be quite difficult. Next, or another common problem we hear about, and this I feel like is kind of the fundamental problem of log analysis that goes back as long as logs have been around, is identifying what has changed in your logs. So at the end of the day, what are customers typically doing with logs? They're typically troubleshooting application issues and trying to find the root cause of those issues. And to answer that, the question they're really trying to get at is, okay, my application's having some issue now. It was working fine yesterday, a week ago, whenever. Tell me what changed. That's fundamentally what all those queries are trying to get at. So wouldn't it be great if we had a much easier way to categorize and group logs and answer that question? Another real common problem is proactive detection. So obviously, it's great if you're able to use logs to dive in once you know your application's having an issue and find the root cause of that application issue and go fix it. But how do you know when those issues are occurring? How do you proactively detect for them? Of course, you can implement metrics, alarming, et cetera, for the issues that you are aware of. But per this last column here, there's always the problem of unknown unknowns. So we're often kind of instrumenting observability and monitoring for yesterday's issues. So we know about some issue that arose, we instrument alarming around that issue. Okay, we have observability in place to address that problem, but we never know what changes are going to happen tomorrow, what new pathways are going to be introduced in our code, and how we stay on top of this ever-changing kind of ephemeral log environment. So let's take a look at how we're going to use these new features to help address these problems. So in other words, how do we go from our big unsorted tin of Legos to something nice and easy to analyze like this? So first, I'm going to talk about the three different features today: pattern analysis, comparison analysis, and CloudWatch logs anomaly detection. So let's start with this pattern concept. So I've got up here on the slide some example log messages, just starting with something really simple. It's effectively the same log event repeating over and over. If you're squinting your eyes, trying to read this, don't worry about it. The exact log contents don't really matter, but essentially we have a log level or severity, so we've got a little info, a timestamp, a request ID, and then it says, oh, API request received from some customer ID. So if we're looking at this and kind of trying to sift through it as humans, we can quickly identify this is effectively the same log message repeating over and over. There's some static or recurring components, and then some dynamic fields as well. So what we can do is translate this and cluster all these log events into a single pattern. So here a pattern looks like this. So we have that info again. Each of those little asterisks is what we call a token, so a dynamic or a variable field within your logs, and then some more static text, another token. So essentially what we've done here is replaced or condensed this big blob of log text down into a single, much easier to read pattern. So I'm going to jump over to my demo here and take a look at what this looks like in CloudWatch. Oops. All right. So if you're not familiar with the page I'm looking at, this is the CloudWatch Logs Insights page. So this is our query experience. So what I'm going to do here is use the default 1 hour. So we're querying over the last hour. I'm going to go into the log group selector and select my application log group. Here I've just got a little sample Lambda function. And I'm going to remove that limit. So now I'm going to run my logs insights query. And now let's say we're responsible for, we're the on-call engineer or builder for our application. We get a page in the middle of the night, and we've got to go troubleshoot the logs for this application. So we run our default query, and then we run into this big Lego tin issue. We've got to sift through these logs and try and identify what the root cause of this issue might be. So traditionally, we might try a bunch of different permutations on the query for error, query for exception, and just dig around in that bin of Legos until we found what we're looking for. So how are we helping to address that? Well, what we've launched now is this new Patterns tab. So now, whenever you run a Logs Insights query, without having to do any extra processing or clicking around, we'll simply return to you patterns. So with the default logs, if you squint your eyes up here, I've got about 4,000 different log events in my query. And we're able to distill that down into a much easier to analyze 15 patterns. So if I dig through or scroll down here into my patterns table, I can see all the different patterns that my logs were grouped or clustered together into, the count of each pattern, what percentage of the total result set was composed of the pattern, and as well the extracted severity or log level. So what I can do here is now I have a much easier time to kind of eyeball through. I can filter for different keywords, or I can just kind of browse through here and look for something like an error message or anything that might be interesting as a on-call engineer. So I can also select a pattern, in which case I'll be presented with the pattern inspect view. So this lets me just dive around and take a closer look at that particular pattern. So each of these tokens I can click through and see the most common token values. So it looks like this first one was a timestamp. The second one was a request ID. So not the most helpful tokens here, but from our customers who have been beta testing this, they found this token feature really useful for things like when it's returning perhaps a HTTP error code. They can see the most common error codes, or things like a customer ID, so they can see which customers are experiencing the most issues, et cetera. So we have some other useful things we can click around through here. Related patterns shows me other patterns that were occurring at the same time, and log samples shows logs, or examples of the logs that this pattern was extracted from. So this is pattern inspect, so this is the automated grouping and categorization of your logs, much like our little Lego tins over here. So that's this part of the demo. I'm gonna click back to the slides for just a minute and talk about the next feature. Okay, so we talked about patterns and how we use them to group and cluster our logs together. But how can we use this in new and more interesting ways? So now that we've kind of done almost like a SQL group by to cluster our logs, another useful thing that we've added is comparison analysis. What this lets you do is effectively profile your logs using patterns from one time period, and then compare it to the patterns extracted for another time period and analyze the differences. So if we kind of abuse this Lego block analogy one last time, let's say we have our Legos, we leave the room, we come back later, and now all of a sudden there's a new tin with red Lego bricks. So that's really easy to identify, because instead of being in some big undifferentiated pile, we're able to quickly just say, oh, okay, here's a new tin, let's move that on. So last Lego brick joke, I'll leave that alone from here. So from here, I'm gonna go back to what this looks like in logs. So again, don't worry about reading the exact log messages here, but we've got now, instead of just one repeating log event over and over, we have 3 different log events repeating. So what we can do is extract that, group those logs together, and distill it down to a mere 3 patterns in this example. But if we come in there tomorrow and the logs look something like this, if we're just inspecting this visually, this is a bit difficult to identify what exactly changed. But using patterns, we can translate this big blob of logs into patterns and quickly see, oh, okay, so there was one new pattern that was introduced. It's this error log database transaction fail. So what I'm trying to convey here is that by using patterns, we can easily do comparison of patterns over 2 different time periods and use that to answer this fundamental question of what changed in my logs. So from here, I'm going to once again go back to the demo, show you what that looks like in CloudWatch. So I'm back here in my Logs Insights query experience once again. And what's changed and what's new is this comparison button up here. So up in the time picker, now instead of just the traditional query my logs over some time period, what I can do now is query my logs over a time period and compare it to some other time period. So our customers have been beta testing this, for example, have been doing this to do the, compare my logs while my application's having an issue right now to a known healthy period. So we can click this compare and say, compare the results of my query to either the previous period, so for my 1 hour time period, where I was going to mirror it with the same time interval. So that previous period would be the previous 1 hour. The previous day, so hey, my logs or my application was working fine yesterday, compared the logs to yesterday's logs, a week ago, a month ago, or I can go pick any custom time I want. So I'll click apply and run the query there. So now, when I go look at the results of this query, we're once again on the patterns page or tab. But instead of seeing the patterns for my query period, I'm actually seeing the change in patterns. So I don't know if you can see this well out there. But for example, up here, we have an error message that was identified as a new pattern. So this was not occurring yesterday. So that's a pretty strong indicator. Hey, error here, that wasn't there yesterday. That's a pretty good candidate for possible root cause of my issue. And I can once again, dive into this pattern expect view. And for example, here I see a histogram where the blue is showing me how often this log event was occurring over the last hour, versus that orange line down, that's a flat line at the bottom, showing, oh, this log event was not occurring yesterday. So I'm quickly able to easily and visually identify that, hey, this error message, brand new, wasn't occurring before. That's my probable root cause, and hopefully I can use this information to go quickly resolve my application issue. So I'm particularly excited about this feature from all our customers who have been involved in beta testing. They've all been really excited about this. Some of the use cases I've heard is one that, like, compare my logs from my application experiencing an issue to a known healthy period, like I've been talking about. Another customer has been using this for their software deployments. So when they're deploying new software, compare post-deployment and pre-deployment logs to identify anything suspicious, and a variety of other use cases as well. So I will finish things off with a couple more slides and dive into the last feature, which is logs anomaly detection. So we looked at patterns and we looked at diff. And kind of building on these, we're launching another feature, or we have launched another feature this week, which is CloudWatch logs anomaly detection. So to kind of take another real-world example, if you imagine in a fruit processing facility, they have these inspection lines, these automated machines that are scanning all the different bits of fruit coming across, looking for things like sticks, stones, et cetera, in the line, and tossing those out. So what we're trying to do with logs anomaly detection is take that same concept and apply it to our logs. So I will show you what that looks like. So what I'm going to do is come over here and go to the brand new logs anomalies page within CloudWatch. So once I load that up, I'll see all the anomalies that have been discovered in my logs. So the way this feature works is that you'll go into one of the log groups for your applications, enable CloudWatch logs anomaly detection. In other words, you'll say, hey, CloudWatch, can you help monitor these logs for me and let me know anytime any unusual changes happen. At that point, we'll train a machine learning model on the expected patterns and the volume of each pattern associated with your application. So kind of like we were using the pattern diff feature before, we're essentially fully automating that process using machine learning model under the hood. Once you turn that on, CloudWatch will just monitor your logs on a always-on basis behind the scenes. So you can just leave it and we'll automatically surface things or surface anomalies that are detected in your logs. So things like, oh, a brand new error message occurring that wasn't there before, a sudden spike in the volume of your, or some particular log message in your logs. We'll even look at things like particular values within your logs. So those tokens that we looked at, if, for example, there's a spike in HTTP 400s, we'll generate an anomaly for that. So just kind of a quick tour of the UI. We give the reason for the anomaly. We'll assess a priority. They're all based on that pattern, like I mentioned before. We'll tell you the detection time, so you can see if this is still occurring or not, or if this is kind of stale, previously occurring in your logs. You can create CloudWatch alarms off of these, so you can tie it into your existing alarming workflow. And you can always pivot from the anomalies down into the underlying logs and logs insights. So I'll go from here and just show you what the setup process for that looks like, because it's pretty quick and easy. So if you wanted to go try out this feature, what you would do is come over to your log groups page, pick a particular log group that you're interested in monitoring. So let's type into these EKS logs. And if you scroll on down, you'll find what's new here, which is the anomaly detection tab. So if I go to this, click on that, I can simply click that create anomaly detection button. From here, there's some settings, and the cool thing is it's all optional. You don't have to go do a bunch of complex configuration, feed in kind of the expected structure or other kind of difficult and cumbersome configuration tasks. We'll just use machine learning to automatically sort that all out from your logs using that pattern capability we were looking at earlier. From here at CloudWatch, we'll just spend a couple minutes training our model on the logs from your application, and the feature will be active, and we'll automatically start surfacing these anomalies anytime they occur. All right, so that's the anomaly detection feature. And then I'll go back and just summarize what we just looked at. So 3 features. We're really excited to have launched these this week at reInvent. I hope you're able to go try these out, and I hope they really facilitate your team's log investigations. One is that patterns feature. So all you have to do is go into CloudWatch Logs Insights, run any query, and you'll now see that patterns tab returning these results. So fully automated clustering of your logs. comes with all your queries. Comparison analysis is that compare changes in my logs over time. Again, the one I'm probably most personally excited about, really cool feature that gives you that compare logs from known healthy period to perhaps when your application is experiencing issues. And then finally, always on anomaly detection, where we take those two kind of capabilities, combine them into a fully automated anomaly detection feature that will surface and detect things like new error messages showing up in your logs. All right, with that said, I'll bring my esteemed colleague Nikhil back up onto the stage to talk about some other new stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. You were right. That is super exciting. Now I just need to figure out a way to build a machine to organize these Legos automatically, just like your parent command. I'll get started on that. But anyway, so moving on to the next topic. We looked at how the log analysis part of the problem, which comes with the large volume of logs, can be solved with these new capabilities. Now, what about log management? How can we make that simpler, easier, and better? So let's first dive into what are those challenges I'm referring to. What are these key log volume related and log management challenges that occur due to the large volume of logs? Now, of course, when you have a lot of logs, you need to be able to store them effectively, manage them in terms of their life cycle, as well as perform various workflow end-to-end operations on them, on how you can access them, what tools to use to query and search. And this becomes especially challenging when you couple that with the fact that not all logs are created equal. On one hand, you have your critical application logs, which you need real-time detection capabilities for. You need pattern analysis, compare, all that anomaly detection, good stuff. But then on the other hand, you have debugs and stack traces and dev environment logs, which you may not need those capabilities on, but you want to be able to capture them, so if there was a problem, you can quickly go search and figure out what happened. Right? So this is what we call infrequently accessed logs in this concept, where those logs are valuable, but when you need them, only when you need them, right? So what we hear our customers are doing to overcome this challenge today are a couple of things. Either they will make the hard decision of limit the logs they are generating, which hinders application visibility, right? Or they will come up with multiple logging solutions just to overcome this cost concern they have. And all this leads to inefficiencies in your troubleshooting and investigation workflows, takes away valuable builder and developer time, and we want to avoid that. So to solve this problem, we announced yesterday a new log class within CloudWatch called infrequently accessed logs. What this class provides is the scale, reliability, security, and the fully managed experience that you already have with CloudWatch at our scale. I don't know if you recall the original slide, 11 quadrillion metrics and 7 exabytes of logs ingested per month on average. That's the scale we operate and build our services at. So you get those benefits. At the same time, you're also able to use the same familiar logs insights query experience, including cross-account queries with this class. So going back to my example where when you need them, you want to be able to find the logs right away, quickly, without having to jump through hoops. And the best part, it's 50% lower ingestion cost compared to your regular, which we are calling standard ingestion class going forward, for custom log ingestion. All right, so you all must be wondering, how do we get started with this? Well, it's as easy as selecting a new log class or the log class of your choice when you're creating a new log group. So in your create log group workflows, you will now see a new parameter called log class, which will have the default option of standard, which is the log class we already had, with all the capabilities and benefits it offers, but you'll now have the option to select infrequently accessed class if you wanted to. Here is a high-level overview of the capabilities available between the two classes. Now, I won't read through the whole list, but as I mentioned, you get the fully managed scale security with the encryption, cross-account analytics, logs, insights, queries, the same familiar tools and same familiar service and offering within AWS. And with our standard log class, now not only do you get the capabilities you already had, but you get all the new stuff, including all 3 capabilities that Matt announced just now, included within your standard ingestion cost. All right. How do you decide which log class is best for your logs? Let's figure out how can we determine which log class to select for our logs. And a simple way to think about this is any logs which are critical for your application health monitoring and detection, where you need alarming or anomaly detection, right? Those logs still need to be in standard, right? So you can get the full suite of benefits and act on any problems that occur in your application. And for logs which you are only querying on an as-needed basis, primarily for forensic analysis maybe, those can be sent to infrequently accessed class. So now you can bring all those other logs which were previously not meeting that criteria for you from a standard logs class standpoint. Now you can send via infrequently accessed class. And as I mentioned on the pricing, this is an example from US East 1. For custom logs in US East 1, standard will continue to be the 50 cents per GB as it has been, and the new infrequently accessed class will be 25 cents per GB of logs ingested, custom logs ingested. And by the way, we do already have vended logs, which are logs coming from most of our AWS services directly to CloudWatch, which are volume tiered, so giving you benefits and discounts at scale. In case of standard, that used to be 50 cents per GB at the starting tier, and at the highest tier, 5 cents per GB. So it was already very effective in terms of scaling. With infrequently accessed class, we have made it even better. So with vended logs, you will also start your vended logs pricing with infrequently accessed class will start at 25 cents per GB as well. All right, so let's recap. What do you actually get from this new log class? So as we talked about, being able to consolidate your logs of different types, different values, different capability requirements in one place, so your developers and your builders are not having to jump from one tool to another to solve that problem, and you're not losing out on visibility into those logs by limiting the generation or something like that, which links back to improved visibility. Because you're not having to make those trade-offs just because of cost, you get better visibility into your application health. This new class is purpose-built with capabilities focused on ad hoc forensic analysis, right? So we have chosen the capabilities that we know are needed for those types of logs and included them in this class. And by giving you the flexibility to make the cost-feature trade-offs relevant to your use case and your logs, we want to provide you more value from your logging within CloudWatch. And this is validated by some of our customers as well. So we've had customers like Fluent Commerce, Design Crowd, both have been using this new class for the last few weeks. And as you can see from some of their codes, they love the flexibility. It's been able to enhance their application visibility, increase operational efficiency, better management of cost, scale and send new workloads to CloudWatch. And best part, without needing to limit the logs that are sent. We hope you will also try it out and get benefits from this new log class, improve your operational observability. One last thing. We talked a lot, both Matt and I, about logs insights and queries and whatnot, and how we can make it better, give you faster insights. But what if we could also make it simpler to get insights? Regardless of your level of knowledge with the query language, familiarity with CloudWatch, or even your actual application stack. Well, yesterday we also announced, in preview, new natural language querying for both logs and metric insights. With this capability, you can give natural language prompts, which will help generate queries on your behalf in context of your data, both for logs and metric insights. You'll be able to see the explanation for the queries that have been generated, why a certain command was picked by that Gen AI prompt or response, what each prompt means. So if you are not familiar with the query language today, it helps you learn, but it doesn't hinder your ability to investigate today. And you can also iterate on those queries. We know as part of log analysis, a lot of the times it's an iterative process. You don't know exactly what you want from the first query. So you can update and iterate the query based on the results you see. All right, let's do a quick demo of this capability. And it's available in preview today. I'm not sure I mentioned the regions in US East 1 and US West 2. All right, so we are back to our Logs and Sites console. And here I will select a log group. And then I am simply going to click on the log generator icon. It'll open this new prompt. I'm going to, for simplicity's sake, let me delete this entire query. And because, let's say I don't know the query language, I also want to learn. So I'm going to select include explanations for these generated queries. So I'm just going to make a simple ask. Show me errors generated in 5-minute intervals. Okay, so I don't really know too much about this function. This is all Matt's demo, as you could see. I don't know what he's been running, what he's not running. I'm just going to ask a simple question. Let's see what it says. So it has generated a query for me, and it is giving me explanation. This query, what it does, it's looking for the keyword error by 5-minute intervals. It's used some amazing things which I don't know much about, bin and stats. They look fancy. All right, let's see what the results are. Let's run this query as is. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but I'm going to run this query. Oh, look. So it's generated the results by error, and it's pretty easy for me to decipher, even somebody like me, who may not know much about these queries. Okay, what if I want to just now see the top, let's say I don't want to see all the errors, I just want to see the top. So I'm going to say sort by error count and show me top 5. Okay. Oh, sorry, update query. This may have an issue. All right, it has generated the query. Let's run it. All right, there we go. So now it has sorted by error count. Oh, it's in ascending order, and it's only showing me 5. So you can iterate on your query as you go to get the results you need. And this is also available in metric insights. So I won't run through the full thing again, but hopefully you get the idea. So when you go into metrics, so in CloudWatch, metrics insights, query, you will see this new option, query generator. So here, before this, we started this demo, I gave it a prompt, show me invocation counts across various lambdas. It generated a set of parameters for the SQL query that Metric Insights is running, and when I ran it, it provided me a graph. And the same capabilities apply here as well. You can update the query, you get explanations of your queries, and you are able to leverage it to learn as well as iterate on your capabilities. All right, let me switch back to the slides. Was any of this helpful? Are you looking forward to this? Awesome. All right, so let's walk you through where you can, here's some QR codes. Feel free to take a picture, scan them for the 3 it's not even 3 features, it's 3, I want to say bucket of features, if you will. But anomaly detection and pattern analysis, CloudWatch logs infrequently accessed, and the query generation. You can learn more about these through these links. You can also stop by our kiosk, observability kiosk at AWS Village at the Venetian anytime. We have some live demos, experts you can ask questions to, some swag. And both me and Matt will be available for Q&A for another 10-15 minutes at the end of this session if you have questions. But we want to be cognizant of your time. I'm sure the first day was long. So, and in case you want to go grab a snack, we let everyone folks go early, but we will be available to answer questions if you have any. With that, thank you, everyone. One last thing. Please, 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 this helps us tremendously. Please fill out the CSAT survey so we can improve this session in future. Couple of minutes to fill the CSAT survey goes a long way for us. Thank you so much. Now